It's a Lund Unleashed emergency show.
911, what's your emergency?
Something big must have happened because Lund isn't getting off his ass for just any old breaking news. A big trade, free agent signing, or his family is just sick of hearing him talk sports all day.
Hell yeah!
Make sure you are subscribed at Lund Unleashed Pod on YouTube and the podcast, or you might miss the news. Now, with whatever it is, here's Johnny.
All right, you've heard by now. Listen to that breaking news. Dun, dun, dun. Very important breaking news. We've been talking about on the show for quite a while. Corbin Burnes. Would it be the Blue Jays? Would it be the Giants? It was down to the Blue Jays and Giants. Maybe Baltimore. Maybe mystery team, which everybody always talks about, mystery team. Well, it was mystery team. It was hometown team. It's the Arizona Diamondbacks, as you see on the cover there, if you're watching on the YouTube channel. Thank you so much for joining us. Burnes to D-backs, now what? I got you covered front, back, sideways, etc., etc. Here's the deal. Let's go to, we might need hot nuts in just a second. Let's go to Bob Nightingale. And look, he is famously off, and so there's a couple of the details that may be something that's going to be debated, but the fact of the matter is Corbin Burnes is going to the Arizona Diamondbacks for 6 years and $210 million, as you see there. An opt-out after 2 years. They've got, Nightingale says here, Corbin Burnes was offered more by the Giants, Blue Jays, but big tax difference in Arizona. That's definitely part of it. 13.3 state income tax in California, 2.5% in Arizona, so a 10% difference. Did the Giants offer that 10%? Well, Bob Nightingale says they did. Also, I think the biggest part is, look at the bottom one there. Corbin Burnes, who lives in Scottsdale, now gets to stay home. I'm sure as a Giants fan, you're going, wait a minute, our spring training is in Scottsdale. I get that, but his wife just had twins. If you are in a relationship, married, significant other, whatever, I would imagine that she probably said to him, I would like you to stay home. $210 million. Arizona finally got to a number he could live with. Max Fried got $218 million. He didn't want to get it every year. Settled for a little bit less. Oh, poor guy. Settled for a little bit less. Now, here's what's interesting. As we'll get into the conversation about Buster Posey and everybody, because I saw on social media when I posted this last night that everyone, but Buster's just like Farhan. Well, he has come through with Willy Adames, but they certainly have a hole in their rotation. Blake Snell goes to the Dodgers. Corbin Burnes goes to the Diamondbacks. I guess it could have been worse, Padres. But he stays or goes to the division rival in the Arizona Diamondbacks, so that is clearly not good. Here is Susan Slesser, though. She says, I'm told definitely the Giants did not offer Burnes more than the Diamondbacks did, so Bob Nightingale, I trust Susan Slesser more. Bob Nightingale says the Blue Jays and Giants offered more. Some people are saying the Blue Jays offered upwards of $250 million. I'm sure Corbin Burnes' wife, who just had twins, they live in Scottsdale, said, not only do I not want to go to another state, I don't want to go to another country in Canada. So no matter what the Blue Jays may have offered, Susan Slesser is saying that the Giants did not offer upwards of $200 million. So we can debate that. Before we get into everything else and where the rotation is and possible pivots from here, I know the first question on everybody's mind is going to be, well, Buster Posey couldn't close. Nothing's changed around here. Buster Posey's hands are tied to a certain extent. I know that everybody loves him in the front office. I know that everybody thinks he was going to do magic. His number one target, and I told you this at the beginning because it's what I heard, was Willy Adames. They needed and wanted a shortstop. He got a hitter to come here, which isn't easy to do, to the Bay Area, 7 years, $182 million. It sounds like, unfortunately, they're going to have a lower payroll than they did a year ago. Now, the Diamondbacks are clearly ahead of them. The Padres could get Suzuki. The Dodgers could get Suzuki, by the way. Voice is still struggling, so if you hear me sound like Peter Brady, when it's time to change, I'll do my best, but I'm fine. I actually sound worse than what I am, but I digress. So he stays within the division. The Padres are clearly better. The Diamondbacks rotation is clearly better now. They're going to probably look to move Jordan Montgomery, but you don't care anything about that. You're like, what are our pivot moves? But first of all, I'm not blaming Buster Posey because you saw or heard, I'm sure by now, that it was staying home. And he got 6 years and $210 million. I'm sure that his agent, Scott Boras, just basically said to the Diamondbacks, get somewhere close. Get in the neighborhood. I'm sure also that it's frustrating for Giants fans because we did hear that Corbin Burnes wanted a pitcher. He did go to St. Mary's. I think this is a wife and lifestyle decision. He did get enough money If the Giants had offered the 10% more, which I'm sure you have to in California, 13.3% versus the 2.5% state income tax in Arizona, I don't know that it would have made a difference because that's where he wanted to stay. Like I said, they just had twins. I'm not going to blame Buster on this whole thing. Yes, it's frustrating to get beat by a smaller market in Arizona and the Padres. The Dodgers are the Dodgers, so I don't know how angry you get about that. You just hate the Dodgers, period, no matter what they do. They got Teoscar Hernandez back. They got Blake Snell. They're still looking to add more. And the Giants seem to be not in that tax bracket or not want to add more. I don't know what the situation is as far as that goes, but it's frustrating when the Diamondbacks get a guy. It's frustrating when the Padres get a guy because that just means they have a more aggressive front office, or they're able to or want to spend more to win, because the Giants now are clearly the fourth best team in the NL West. Is that part of the front office and that big mahogany table when Buster Posey goes walking in and says, "I'd like some money, sir," and they say to him, "Sorry, bro, we're just not doing fourth place right now." I don't see where Corbin Burnes brings that. I do, because they clearly need a number two. So me, personally, I'm not blaming Buster. You can. That's fine. I get it, and I understand it, and I certainly understand the frustration. Here is Susan Slesser expanding more, and then I'll show you some guys that the Giants might be going after. But as she says, the Giants were in a good position to land Burnes. They had been willing to go over $200 million, so it sounds like they weren't. Played at St. Mary's, blah, blah. You know that. Dodgers dominance, blah, blah. Go to the end of it. She says there are some mixed messages here. San Francisco signing Willy Adames to the 7-182 that I just talked about. Signing the pitching and defense would be the emphasis. The pitching part of the team isn't easy to do on a restricted budget. You don't want to hear that, neither do I. Don't care. They've got money, and they've got a lot of young players that aren't even ARB eligible. Don't give me that. Even Logan Webb isn't making a ton of money, so I'm just not buying the constraints and all that kind of stuff. One thing, and the only saving grace here might be Roki Sasaki. And you hear at the bottom, she says, unless they convince Sasaki to sign, he is not expected to make a decision until January 15th. As far as Roki Sasaki is concerned, of course we hear Dodgers. A couple of Japanese players there, of course. Otani leads the way. Yamamoto is there. Apparently, Sasaki very much respects Yu Darvish. He's with the Padres. The Giants are on the West Coast, which he's said to prefer. He's said to prefer maybe a smaller market, and although San Francisco is not a smaller market, we sure as hell aren't a tough media. So he's kind of I guess he's been burned by the media in the past. He's had some family issues. So he's a little bit shy, apparently. He's a little bit different of a guy. Do I expect them to get Sasaki? No. I didn't expect the Diamondbacks to get Corbin Burnes, though. Sasaki, Padres, Dodgers, it sounds like the New York teams are out. So that would be the one saving grace. I'm going to show you some places where they can pivot. But Sasaki, to me, is the only guy amongst this list. Now, not the only guy. That's too much. But it really seems like he might be the guy that they would lean on and hope to get. He's 23 years old, has great stuff. You don't know about Roki Sasaki. If you don't, look it up. But he's supposed to be great, and he would be the only saving grace because this is the rotation, as you can see below me there. That's from Fangraphs, and that's the expected 2025 performance, so you can believe that or not. My issue is just Logan Webb 1, Robbie Ray 2, Kyle Harrison 3, Roop 4. That could be Hicks. I told you I wasn't a huge signing of Hicks, and I know a lot of people at the beginning of the year were like, "Ha, Lund, ha!" And then he fell off at the end. I'd much rather see him pumping 100, 102 out of the bullpen. I think that's what they need. I really like Hayden Birdsong, but I don't like putting the pressure on him. And then Whisenhunt, and we saw a little bit of Mason Black last year. So that's not a great rotation. That's not a rotation that's going to compete in the NL West with the Dodgers and the Diamondbacks and the Padres. They might move Dylan Cease, but they still have a really good rotation. So you're the fourth best rotation. Only Colorado is worse in the division. That pitching right there that is on the screen is not getting you to the playoffs, in my opinion. Now, I think Robbie Ray would be a great 3. Harrison could be a 4. I'm still not completely convinced on him. And then you have some depth. I really like Hayden Birdsong. But, again, you're relying on guys that are 22, 23 years old, and you don't want to do that. Jordan Hicks, to me, is better in the bullpen. You can completely disagree with that assessment. I'm just telling you how I see it. They need a clear number 2 on this team after losing Blake Snell. I think that much is apparent. So let's look at possible free agents and trades. Let me get that off the screen. Let me get the Giants available. Let's see. Let me get the Giants off the screen. There you go. So in trades, Luis Castillo was a guy that Seattle is looking to move. He didn't have quite as good of a season last year as to see a 3.64 ERA and 175 innings pitched. But he's probably the best of the best out there in terms of availability. Now, Seattle had a terrible offense last year. Do the Giants have any offense to give? Not really. So I don't see a match there. Dylan Cease, the problem would probably be, and I screamed and yelled from the rooftops, go get Dylan Cease, instead of Snell last year. I just really liked Cease. Now you would have had to trade for him, of course, from the White Sox. But he's on the Padres. Would the Padres trade Dylan Cease within the division? I highly doubt it unless you gave them a ton of motivation to do so. In other words, you overpaid. 14-11 last year, 3.47 ERA, and he's got some of the nastiest stuff you'll ever see. So I doubt that would happen. Sonny Gray is an interesting one. He's 35 years old, 12-9 with a 3.84 the year before. He had a 2.79 ERA, so is that indicative of a guy that's slipping at the age of 35? Possibly. But Sonny Gray could certainly be a number 2 in this rotation. Pablo Lopez, not a huge fan, but his name has been popping up. And then Framber Valdez would be amazing. But since they made the Kyle Tucker trade, there was rumors that Valdez and Tucker were both on the block. Once Tucker got traded to the Cubs, they said that they wouldn't trade Framber Valdez. But again, I'm a big believer, and I said this on Friday's show about Jimmy Butler and Pat Riley, and Pat Riley said, we are not trading Jimmy Butler. Well, that just means you haven't got the right offer yet. So Houston hasn't gotten the right offer for Framber Valdez, who is still under team control, by the way, and isn't making any money. And I shouldn't say that. You know what I mean, as far as baseball is concerned. So he's still in arbitration, 15-7. He's nasty with a 291. He would be amazing to get. Pitched 176 innings, but who are you going to give up? Houston's going to want a lot in that way. They're not a major market team, so they did in that Cubs trade, and they signed Christian Walker. Could they use an outfielder to replace Kyle Tucker? Sure they could, but the Giants really don't have one to give unless you think that somebody like Ramos. Would they take Ramos? Would you want to move Ramos? I mean, you need offense too. Would Ramos get Valdez? Probably not. You could try. You probably want to vomit on that idea, but I'm just telling you, he didn't have a great second half, so maybe he could be on the block, but they still need offense. And then free agents to me, Jack Flaherty, who last year just signed a quick one-year deal with Detroit, but then ended up with L.A. and helped them win a championship, 13-7 with a 3.17. Years of success in St. Louis. If I was Buster Posey, I would certainly be on the phone to Jack Flaherty's agents and try to get him. Is he a true number 2? It depends on who you're getting, but last year he was. So Flaherty's not a bad idea, and then the rest of the guys are just old guys. Charlie Morton, Max Scherzer. Morton, I think, is 41. Scherzer's 40. Verlander's like 42. Out of that old group, probably Verlander the best, even though, it looks to me, he pitched 90 innings last year. I don't want anything to do with Scherzer. I think he's at the end. So those aren't great ones. And if you're thinking to yourself, wait a minute, there's got to be something better than that. There's just not. Let me go to, let's see, I already gave you that. This is the garbage. I called this the garbage list. Let's shut those two down and go to the garbage list. I hope you can see that. There's Burnes and Snell and Fried and Eovaldi and all those guys. Flaherty is the best available. Guys like Kyle Gibson, Justin Verlander. I'm just showing you this because there's just not a lot out there from a free agent standpoint. Scherzer, Corbin, he's terrible. With Washington, finally played that deal out. Quintana, none of those guys. Lorenzen, Mike Clevenger. I mean, they're just none of those guys are a number 2. You've got better guys on your team. I'm only showing that because that's what's left on the garbage free agent list. It's just not very good. So, again, to me, and that's a piece that they wrote. We don't need to go through that thing. But to me, what I showed you is pretty much it. I mean, these are the guys that are the possibility of doing something. There we go, right there. So Castillo, Dylan Cease, Sonny Gray, Pablo Lopez, Framber Valdez. If there's somebody else I'm missing, hit me up at John Lund Radio on Twitter and all of social media. Or you can hit me here with a comment if there's somebody I'm missing, and there might be. Trade-wise, there's probably somebody, but you're going to have to give somebody up. What do they have to give up? Young pitching. If you want young pitching. I mean, I think Castillo is doable, but you got to give up offense. I think that St. Louis is going into a mini rebuild. They won't do it fully. Sonny Gray's 35 years old, making quite a bit of money. It's a backloaded contract for Sonny Gray. I think he has 2.65 left, but that's not horrible. But would the Giants do that? Probably not. Valdez fits into the Giants' thoughts financially, but you got to give up a lot in trade to get him. I think Ramos would be just the start of it. To me, if you want to get somebody who's probably going to have the best chance as far as free agency, Jack Flaherty sticks out like a sore thumb right now. Probably I'd go Flaherty, but maybe he wants too much money. I'm not paying Jack Flaherty $30 million or something. I think Corbin Burnes' deal ends up being about $35 million a year. So that's what you got left on it. I showed you the garbage list on top of that. The garbage list is just not good. So that's what's going on as far as the pitching is concerned. Give me your thoughts on that. But, yeah, it's not great news. I wish I had better breaking news for you, but Corbin Burnes kind of out of nowhere. And that's where, the insiders don't know. I mean, they knew he was having twins. They didn't mention that he was in Scottsdale. You wouldn't think that Arizona, last year they had Jordan Montgomery. I mean, that's a name. Jordan Montgomery had a horrible year in Arizona. Kind of the same situation as what Blake Snell did. Blake Snell came in late. So did Jordan Montgomery. Jordan Montgomery was terrible. I'm sure they would love to get rid of Jordan Montgomery. Is he a number 2 at this particular point? Not based on last year. He's got a year left on his deal at fairly hefty price tag. I don't think the Giants would go in that direction. So to me, if Flaherty would pitch for, $20 million a year over a few years, maybe 3 and 60, something along those lines, or 2 and 60, or not 2 and 60, like 20 a year, 2 and 40, something in that range. Jack Flaherty is from Southern California, so he's a West Coast guy. That would make some sense. So give me your thoughts. That is your breaking news. Burnes to the D-backs. Not only does he not sign with the Giants, he signs with a division rival. Could have been worse. I'm not blaming Buster as I look down this. The money, now what? I gave you the situations. The rotation does not excite me. This is not a playoff rotation. Let me just go back to that real quick. That is not a playoff rotation. Webb, Ray, Harrison, Roop, Hicks, Birdsong. I don't know what they'd get out of Wisenhunt or Black, Mason Black, who's 8th on that list. They've got to go out and get themselves a pitcher. Flaherty would be probably my preference because I just don't think they're going to trade a whole lot. Maybe they are. Maybe you think that there's somebody on a list that is better than what I've put up there. There are the free agents, as I said. And the other one that is not up there clearly is Roki Sasaki. Roki Sasaki is a free agent. Padres, Dodgers is what we're hearing, one of those two teams. That's not great because another sounds like he's going to go to a division rival, but not the Giants. We have heard before that Buster Posey is enamored with the guy, but one thing is, and I said this a couple of weeks ago on the show, you got a guy like Seiya Suzuki who's a great right fielder for the Cubs. I think he's very good, and he's underrated defensively. He's probably going to be relegated to a DH there, and he doesn't want to be a DH. Could you get Seiya Suzuki to replace Mike Yastrzemski? Maybe you can trade Yastrzemski, or maybe Mike Yastrzemski would be a great 4th outfielder. The two positions where they need to get better offensively, that really, because that's all that's left, is first base. We've heard Pete Alonso's name. To me, unless he dropped his price, and if he dropped his price, I think he'd go back to New York. So I don't think from an offensive standpoint, you got Bryce Eldridge. You don't want to block his way. Pete Alonso's not going to sign for a short-term deal. At least it doesn't sound like it. He'd want to sign 4, 5, 6-year contract at least. And I don't see the Giants doing that with Bryce Eldridge. I don't see them trading him as well because it's a homegrown talent. It looks like he can hit. But those are your guys, free agents and trades, outside of Roki Sasaki, the 23-year-old Japanese pitcher. And it's not going to be about money for him. You've probably heard this story. It's going to be international signing money, which the Giants don't have a ton of, but it's not really going to make a difference. He's coming over kind of like Ohtani did earlier than expected, so he's not getting Yamamoto money. It's just going to be a pure decision on what he wants to do. And we've heard that he's not going to sign until after January 15th. So there you go. That is your list, plus Roki Sasaki, if you want to throw that on the list. What is your thoughts? What are your thoughts on that as far as the guys are concerned? There's your Giants rotation, which is not exciting. All right, Corbin Burnes is a member of the Diamondbacks. Give me your thoughts on all that kind of stuff. Make sure that you're subscribing. There's your emergency show. Emergency. Corbin Burnes to the Diamondbacks. Give me your thoughts. Can Buster pull something out of the hat? Where would you go after you see all those names? Is there somebody I'm missing? Suzuki's obviously there. Flaherty if you're going free agency. Sonny Gray I could see in a trade. He would probably cost you the least, but he does make a lot of money. I don't know that the Giants would go that far. It's about 32.5 AAV on him. Who do you like? Who do you not like? Who do you want? Who do you not want? You want to go offense? You want Pete Alonso? I don't know that that's going to happen. Are you mad at Buster? Give me all those thoughts. At John Lund Radio on Twitter and all of social media. Make sure you're following the podcast and the YouTube channel at John Lund Unleashed Pod. Breaking news, Corbin Burnes is a member of the Arizona Diamondbacks. Give me your thoughts. Breaking news. Have a great weekend.